everybody. Today let's go and make some beautiful baby soap. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rhonda and I'm a professional soaper, and I have my own business that I sell all of these products, and of course I have a YouTube channel. So welcome. Now today we are going to be making some beautiful baby soap. Now one thing to remember with baby soap is it does have a very high content of olive oil, so therefore the cure time is going to be a lot longer. I usually would say 10 months to about a year is normal. I always leave all of mine for about a year with the baby soap, so you do need to make this well in advance if you want it. You can use it before that. The only thing is the bar will be squishy and soft and it will not hold its hard form. So you definitely need to give it the cure time. So this is what it looks like. We're going to be making these gorgeous ones today. No colors, of course, because it's for baby. It would also be suitable for mature aged skin because it doesn't have, you know, all the extra things in it. It doesn't have a high content of of coconut oil. It has no coconut oil at all because we want a zero cleansing bar. So this is good for the kiddies, and as I always say, please test. It is your responsibility to test and find your own way to make, you know, your soap through education, of course. If you want to join my Patreon, just go over there and join me. But for today, we are going to get making this using the heat transfer method. So the heat transfer method is basically making the lye, pouring the hot lye directly onto the butters, and that way it will melt it that way without us having to, you know, melt it down on a cooker or a stove or something else. But anyway, let's get going making this beautiful soap. So in here I have my bucket, and what I want to do here is we want to actually get all of the ingredients that we need to list in here. So let's first of all start with the butters, because we don't want the olive oil in this yet. We just want the butters so that we can melt them down. So now in this, I'm going to tear it out. It didn't tear itself out properly, so let's just check. And we're going to add 25 grams of cocoa butter. So let me just put this in. Now, because this doesn't have coconut in it, we need something like this just to help it. So the cocoa butter is going to help it be a little bit harder because we want a zero cleansing. Babies do not need cleansing. So like I said, you know, this is going to make it harder along with the shea butter. So that's our cocoa butter. Now let's just go and grab the shea. So I want 110 grams of shea. My scale is torn out, so I'm just going to be adding in the shea. Like I said, 110. So let me just pop this in because I actually buy my shea butter in 20 kilo boxes, so I buy massive amounts of it. So we're just breaking it down a little bit in here. And as I said, 110 grams. I hope I said 110 at the start, but it is 110, everybody. Let me just push it off here because it's getting stuck on my spoon, isn't it? So, and you do want to make sure that you're weighing everything, because weighing something wrong means that your recipe has changed. It's not the original recipe that we've designed. And when you get something in soap calc, you need to put it in there. So if you're not going to put as much shea as me or something else, it means that you need to go back to soap calc again and you need to put it back in. And I will give you the percentages. I just thought about that then. So if you're trying to get the recipe, which I'm going to give throughout the video, just make sure you're watching this. It won't be in the description, but of course if you're on Patreon, please go over there. They already have the recipe on Patreon. I've already listed that for everyone over there. So now we do have all of our butters in there, as I said. So we've got all the butters. Look how beautiful they look. And now what we're going to be doing, and this is called the heat transfer method. So remember, we already made the water. It's super hot, and literally we are just going to pour that directly on to you know, all of the butters and mix it in. And this is called the heat transfer method because basically the lye and the butter together is creating, you know, a transfer of heat because the lye is hot. So when you make lye, it's hot. So you need to make it and then pour it straight in. You can't leave the lye sitting there for an hour or anything. because we want the heat to do this. And you can see that it's already starting to look a little bit like a thin custard. So, the thing with this is you need to keep going for quite some time. Like, just mix it up until there is absolutely no lumps and bumps in here. Because if you leave any lumps and bumps of shea, what actually happens when you make the soap, then you can have bits of chunks of shea butter sitting on the outside, and they won't sort of mix in properly if there's any lumps in this. So it will take you, I'm going to say up to 10 minutes, depending how big the mix is. Like, we're actually working here on a 500-gram recipe. So we'll go over the recipe just again. So like I said, when we're making the lye, that's 150 grams of water and 63.50 grams of sodium hydroxide, and those two components make the lye. And then we need our shea, which we've added in here. So that's 110 grams and 25 grams of cocoa butter. So remember, we added that in there as well. And we are getting there, I'll tell you. But can you see how there's still some lumps? So we need to get those out. Like I said, it does take a bit of time. But if you're doing a recipe like this where you've got a lot of olive oil in it, you can definitely do this. But the one thing I would say is if you're doing a massive batch of like 10 kilos, this can be really annoying, the heat transfer method, because it takes quite a while. But with a recipe small like this, it's a great way, because then you don't have to sit around waiting for them to cool. And remember, you don't need this to be at any particular temperature. So pretty much you're just going to make this once all of this, all the butters have melted down, then we're literally going to pour all of our oils in, and it's going to be made within probably 10 minutes. So from, once all of this bit here is ready, it's going to be super fast. Now, one thing I will tell you as well, if you're making baby soap, because baby soap has to actually sit in the mold for, about 3 to 4 days, because it is much, much softer, so you can't unmold it straight away. The thing that happens is it's very hard to cut it, and often when you try and cut it, it will crack because of the high content of olive. So it's better to pour this directly into a silicone mold. So I do have some individual silicone molds that I'm going to pour it into. And in a minute, so let's set this aside actually, and just let it melt a tiny bit more, and I'll come back to that in a second. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways that, or molds I should say, that I've done some, because I've already done some samples for you so that you can. Now this was from my photo shoot today, but basically these are some of the blocks. So these are a baby soap, so you can see that's just in a block form. And actually at the moment in Australia, Kmart has this block form mold, which is about 140 grams. So it's a great size. The only thing I'd say is with baby soap, often you don't want one this big. You might want one smaller. So that is one. And then I did make these ones as well. So this is just a little mold. This is actually a cake mold from the cake shop. But obviously I only use it for soap, nothing else. But this is much easier to hold in your hand, whereas this one is much more chunky. So it depends which one. But I'm going to be using this mold today because I've actually made myself some of these and it's very good. Now, can you see how it's looking a little bit brownish as well? That's because I did put 1%, I think there was 1 or 2 grams of a baby powder scent in it. Now you don't have to do that. You can add no scent at all in baby powder, but one of my daughters actually wanted the baby some scent to go in, and you can use fragrance oil, but don't use much. You only want to use 1 or 2%. Usually in most soaps, you're probably going to use around 5%, but obviously we're not going to for this baby one. Now this is all beautiful. Look how lovely it is. It's all melted down. So let's pop this back on the scale. Now we want to add in our olive oil, because remember, usually what you do is you put all your oils in, they're all melted, then you're going to add your lye. Well, our lye's already been added. So if you leave this here, it's going to start to thicken up like soap. So it's important to put everything else that we need to put in here. So like I said, let's go and get the olive oil. So we want 350 grams of olive oil. So let's pour this in. As I said, 350 grams. If you're worried about measurements, you can pour them in separate jugs first and then just put them all in the same one. But because I make so much soap, you just get used to it, to be really honest. And we don't want to pour too much in, so make sure you're just being really gentle and slow. What do they say? The tortoise wins the race. So anyway, so like I said, we've got that in there. My last thing I'm going to add is 15 grams of castor oil. The only reason I'm adding castor is lots of people ask me for bubbles. Babies don't really need bubbles, but, you know, sometimes I think we just think we need the bubbles. So, like I said, we're going to add that in too. So here is my castor oil just in here, so you can see that is castor oil. And as I said, you know, 15 grams. So let me just tear my scale out again. And if you're ever doing recipes, I always say keep your castor oil under 5%, because once you put it over, it can sometimes have a really funny smell. So I always say don't do that. So anyway, everybody, this is it. So we have done everything. Look how lovely that looks. We're not going to add colors because this is for a baby. If you wanted to, I guess you could. You just have to test it yourself. Please test everything, everyone. If you are making products, please test this before you go and sell it. Just because I've made it, you should still also do your own testing. So we're going to put our stick blender in. Let me just plug it in and we'll start to make this all gorgeous. So just do it in small bursts, everyone. And we want to mix this until it comes to a light trace. All right, so it's looking pretty good. Now what we're going to be doing is adding in our fragrance oil. As I said, like honestly, it's only a couple drops. It's only like, this is the tiny baby lid. It's not even half a lid. Like I said, it's only like 1% is, well, actually, sorry, not 1%. I'm adding in 1 gram. That's how small an amount. And it's just going to give a very, very light scent. I'm going to mix this in and just make sure it's all done perfect. And you can see it's come to trace because when I lift this up and drop it in, can you see, like, you can see little droplets over the top? That way you know it's all done. So let's undo this, and we know this is ready. Now there's other things that you can add in. You can add in some, you know, sodium lactate. That's actually a salt derived product. So it means it will help it release from the mold easier. For baby soap, I generally just wouldn't add that in. I just like to keep it as good as we can and just literally pour it in the mold. Alright, so you can see I do have my little molds here, and literally all I'm going to do is just pour everything directly into these. I'm just going to tap this out just a tiny bit, and let's just get all the soap off the little stick blender. Also, I don't wash mine until the next day. I let them go a little bit harder. And, you know, when I'm doing this, I always just give it another mix just to make sure it's 100% mixed in. And let's just pour it into these molds. So you can see how beautiful it is. It's going to come into these molds really lovely. Try not to overfill them, otherwise you're going to have to trim the molds up. But if you fill them right, I'll tap this in a minute. But if this is right, then, you know, basically we don't need to trim the bars. Otherwise it can end up being a real pain trimming the bars up. So once it's done that, we'll just give it a little shimmy and a shake, just to make sure it's sitting in there nice. And obviously this one here needs a little bit more. And then we'll just, you know, give it a, you know, you can use your spatula just to tap it down if you want to flatten it a bit more, or put it on a tray. So usually I would put these on a tray, which I will do after this. But as we said, you know, we're just going to do this and that's it. And then we're going to leave these for a few days, and then we'll take them out. But I've already shown you the other ones that I've already made, which is exactly the same recipe. So I'm trying to hold this container so that I can actually show you the right, because you don't want to see the back of the bowl. That's a bit boring to watch, isn't it? But anyway, so I hope that you've enjoyed watching this baby soap. And now please make sure you sit this on a curing rack for about a year. You know, no less than 9 or 10 months. And I know you might think that's a long time, but remember, this has a really high content of, olive oil. And I think I've got about 62% olive oil in here. So, sorry, I said I'd give the amounts before in percentage, but I forgot I didn't actually write it down. So, sorry, please forgive me, friends. But anyway, we have pretty much done with this, haven't we? And once again, I will show you, like I said, these are what they look like, and they're all done and looking beautiful. I'm going to just set that one aside. So that is it. I hope you have enjoyed watching how to make lye, how to use the heat transfer method, and how to make some beautiful baby soap. So I will see you all in the next video, my friends. Make sure you go over and join me on Patreon, and of course, like and subscribe on my videos, and I will see you next time. Bye. So here it is, everybody. These are the beautiful soaps. Don't they look lovely? So hopefully, like I said, you've loved this video, and this has shown you a little bit about making soap.